Good morning, Revolution Church. I am so glad to be back in the States with you guys. If you haven't met you yet, my name is Holly, and I'm my good-looking husband's wife. And this past week has been a crazy week. I was in Haiti. I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. But the reason why I'm up here is because the day before I left for Haiti, both of Richard's eyes hemorrhaged. I ended up going to the doctor for ulcers in my stomach. And then while I was in Haiti, Richard was in the hospital for a few days. And so here I am. But the good thing is that we're getting better. Richard got to the source of his junk. He now has asthma. And so now we know why his eyes are hemorrhaging. And so I truly believe that the Lord is doing something so powerful in him so he can be stronger, so he can lead longer. I generally believe that. The other thing is, I want to say a huge thanks to Brad. Like, he is super special to our family. He's my husband's best friend, yes. He's my husband's best friend and his partner. I won't say crime, but crime. And I wish I had some funny pictures to show you, but I don't have any of those today. But I'm super thankful for him. I learned in Haiti this week that if you are a pastor's wife, you're supposed to help lead the church and lead worship. And if you don't, they won't call you Madam Pastor. So I can't lead worship and I can't manage the church. So I guess I'm just Holly, and that's okay, right? But this past week, I got the privilege to go to Haiti to speak at a women's advancement conference. And it was me and Kelsey Brackett and 3 other women on this team. There were 5 of us. And we got to Haiti, and the first few days, it was a Mommy and Me conference. And what that looked like was we went into the 2 different villages, one which our church sponsors, and the other one is called Dal. It's on top of this huge mountain. And what we did was we went in, we taught proper hand washing, we talked about like breastfeeding, we talked about caring for your child, and then I did a devotion on God seeing them, hearing them, and then your generosity through life groups and within our church. We were able to provide every mom at least 10 cloth diapers so they could take care of their babies. Yes. So I am fired up. I was backstage. I feel like I was back in Haiti. When we go to church in Haiti, everybody's dancing, everybody's swaying their hips. You would think you're in a club, but you're not. And it is so awesome. I wish I could pick up Haiti, his church, and bring it to here and just show you. And so I hope that today's message is going to fire you up as it has me, because I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for this word. I really genuinely am. If you were where you are, if you would stand up where you are. And I want you to put both your hands in the air like this, both in the air. I want you to look straight up to Jesus, and I'm going to pray. God, you are mighty. You are power. And so, God, I'm asking you right now, Lord Jesus, that you will come and meet us right here. Your Spirit is already present, and we can feel it, God. So, God, I pray that you would remove every form of distraction. I pray that you remove every form of apathy or laziness in this room, God. I pray that if relationships are falling apart, that you would allow these hearts to lean in. God, this is your church, and we are your people. And so, God, we ask you to do something that only you can do through this day. In your son's name I pray. Amen. Have a seat. Go ahead and turn in your Bibles to Jonah chapter 1. I'm not going to be talking about every chapter. I mean, it's really quick. There's a lot of drama, a lot of good stuff that will make for a good movie. So I'm going to leave that up to you to go read it. But I wanted to kind of hit some of the highlights. We're going to start 1 through 4. Sorry, glasses. You thought my glasses fogged up in this stage in Haiti? Every time I open my mouth, it'd be whoof. It's hilarious. Okay, now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of the Amittai, saying, "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me." But Jonah arose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. Now, when I started thinking about this, I thought, it says, there's evil and there's like this great city. And the more that I thought about it, as I looked and started really researching what was so bad that he wanted to run in the opposite direction. Number one, he hated the Assyrians. He didn't think that God's mercy was good enough for them. He hated them. He had prejudice in his heart. And in Nahum chapter 1, it's talking about how in Nineveh, they schemed against the Lord. In Nahum chapter 2, they exploited the helpless. In Nahum chapter 3, there was idolatry, prostitution, and witchcraft. This place was evil. And what I started realizing as I was preparing for this message, Haiti looks a lot like this place. From the moment you step out of the plane, you can feel the darkness. You can feel it. It's so powerful. But you know what I started thinking about? Is God never said following him into dark places was going to be easy. Never, ever. You can't look in any parts of your Bible and show me when God called us into the darkness to be the light that was ever, ever, ever going to be easy. See, like the mindset of Jonah, he fled. And I started thinking about, don't we do that too? When God calls us to do things for him, God calls us to go into the dark places, the moment things get hard, we check out. The moment things get hard, we check out. And what that tells me is that our heart condition is jacked up. We flee out of fear. We flee out of insecurity. We flee out of comfort. We do whatever we can to get the heck out of there the moment it gets hard. No wonder Jonah wanted to run. That place was evil. It was evil. It was evil. And as I began to pray for this message, 2 words woke me up in the middle of the night. And that word was redo and undo. And I didn't know what in the world the Lord was trying to teach me. And I felt God say, Holly, stop trying to redo what I'm trying to undo. And I want you to hear me say that don't try to redo what God is working to undo. You know, there are 2 very different approaches when you look at this words of redo and undo. When you think about redo, it's almost like an intentional resisting. Jonah, it said he paid the fare, right? Then he went down into the boat. It was an intentional resistance of being obedient. That's what redoing is. It's a constant trying to do something differently. The word redo actually means do something again or differently. The word undo is unfasten, untie, or loosen something. When I think about the word intentional, how he literally resisted the call to go. He resisted this call that he willfully paid a fare to get on a boat, to go down into it, to get as far away from Nineveh as possible. Because the reality is, Nineveh is on one side, and he wanted to go as far west as he possibly could go. And we do the exact same thing when God calls us to do hard things. We run in the opposite direction. Versus being a surrender, saying, yes, Lord, whatever that looks like. If that means going, yes. If that means giving up time, yes. If that means giving up a relationship, yes. If that means giving up a dream for a season, yes. Redo and undo look a lot different. They're completely opposite. It's we continue to redo. It's our strength. It's our strength. Undoing is saying whatever you're trying to do, God. You know, there's this picture of a tree. When you first walk in to where we are in Haiti, there's this huge like a cement wall all the way around. There's barbed wire fence at the top. The place, they're building a house for girls in the orphanage across the street to have a transitional home. And on the other side, there's a older guy's transitional home. There's the people who live there, like the missionaries who live actually there all year round. And then there's a little place with bunk beds. And there's a bathroom type place. If you can see, like right to the right of that door is where we take showers, just like open shower things. And this tree is beautiful, right? It's got so many roots on it. It's flourishing, you would think. And you see those brown looking things that hanging from the tree? What's so crazy about this tree is that this is the tree where voodoo worship happens. All over Haiti. The first thing that I see walking into the place where I stay, I never knew it to this trip, is that's a voodoo worship tree. Those brown things that hang down, they keep going to the ground and they start new roots and begin a new tree. That's exactly how evil works. See, I had no idea that this tree even represented that. The roots were so deep and so deep within Haiti. Once we started going out and we were in like the car looking, I would notice these trees. I'm like, these trees are so deeply rooted. It's unreal. And the reason why I go to Haiti is because I can physically see an undoing of evil. I can see it with my own eyes. There may be a tree that represents voodoo worship, but I see a group of people that are undoing the evil in this country. And there may be a very small amount, but I'm watching God do incredible things. Is Haiti dangerous? Yes. Is it evil? Yes. Is there witchcraft? Yes. But so is in my city. There's witchcraft here. There's evil here. There's potential danger here. But the undoing is on Jesus, not me. See, God called Jonah to go, and it wasn't Jonah's undoing. It was God's undoing. He was going to have mercy on his people. And I started realizing but you know what is up to me? Is my obedience. It's my obedience that calls me to that place. Jonah was told by God to go, that he was called to be a part of the undoing, and he said no. Hey, go tell these people to repent. And he said no. That's hard to swallow. And God didn't even ask him to do too much. I mean, it wasn't like it was like this massive thing. All he had to do was go. Let's pick back up at verse 5. Then the mariners were afraid, and every man cried out to his God, and threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten the load. But Jonah had gone down into the lowest parts of the ship, had lain down, and was fast asleep. So the captain came to him and said to him, "What do you mean, sleeper? Arise, call on your God. Perhaps your God will consider us so that we may not perish." And when I read that, I stopped on the one part where it said, Jonah had gone down to the lowest part of the ship, had lain down, and was fast asleep. Y'all, God doesn't ask you or me to do anything that he's not a part of. He's not going to ask us to go or do. Now, the results may be different than what you think they're going to be. You may think that it's supposed to go one way and it go a completely different way. I said it multiple times when I was in Haiti. If I die in Haiti, then oh my gosh, what an incredible story for my kids and my husband to tell. I will die proclaiming the name of Jesus. But we're so afraid of that. We're so afraid of being uncomfortable in any space of our lives that we run in the opposite direction of what God has called us, directly into the darkness to proclaim his light. It blows my mind. And what happens is our feelings get in the way. They begin to derail our obedience. And what I know when I read this passage of scripture, this dude fell asleep in the bottom of the boat. And it was like the Lord so clearly said, Holly, the absence of guilt doesn't mean that you are doing or not doing what is right. Just because you don't feel guilty for it doesn't mean it's right. Just because you're not doing doesn't mean it's wrong or right. Does not mean that. Because when you line up anything with the Word of God, he will convict you and you will walk in the opposite direction of the direction you were headed. So if you're not feeling guilty about sleeping with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, that doesn't make it right. Because the Bible tells me that it's wrong. If you're not giving of your time and your giftings through the church or to God's kingdom, just because you don't feel guilty about it, doesn't make it right. Just because you hold back your money in your pocket and say, well, this is my pocket, I earned this money, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Just because you're holding on to it and you don't feel guilt doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it right. Sin and disobedience will always play on your feelings, and they'll always tell you that it feels good. Always. Always. Jonah took God out of the equation. He said, God, I'm taking you out of this equation. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to go the opposite direction, which you've called me to go. And honestly, we're no different. How many times has God called you out of that relationship and you keep redoing it a different way thinking you're going to get a different outcome? If you are a control freak, you're probably in the redo category. Because you think, if I just redo it this way, it's going to be a little bit different. Or that job he has obviously called you out of. But you think taking a new position in that same place is going to change the outcome. Or the dream that you keep holding on to and trying to manipulate to make happen. That's redoing, and maybe God is trying to do a massive undoing of your heart, but you have got to let him do it. You think if I do it this again or differently, just like the definition of redo, then something's going to happen. Changing your environment, it's going to be different. You know, for 23 years, y'all, I feel like I have tried to lose weight. I have tried everything under the sun, from Weight Watchers to low carb to diet pills to starving myself. Like, did everything. And it wasn't until the day after I dropped Rachel off in college that I literally said, enough is enough. I'm done. Like, I am sick of it. This is a battle against the enemy, and I am done with it. And for almost 11 weeks now, since August, I haven't touched a drop of sugar, and I have not even wanted it. It has not tempted me in any place, at any way. That oppression no longer has a hold on me. And I've lost 28 pounds so far. Literally. 20. Yeah, you better clap for that. I've got a long way to go. And I thought I was losing it. It was like a walk up a hill in Haiti. Then they drove me up, and I was like, thank you, Lord. It was so good. It was so good. I literally said, now, are we going to have to walk up this hill? And the guy, Jamie, said, well, we can. I was like, no. I wasn't asking if I could walk up the hill. I'm asking you if you could drive me up this hill. He's like, no, we're going to drive up the hill. And I was like, see what the Lord does? I was obedient, and he was obedient. It was so great. So great. But you know, we can do a lot of redoing, but the undoing comes when we walk in holiness. The undoing comes by the blood of Jesus. It's the washing and renewing of our soul. It's stopping to turn back and go in the opposite direction that you're headed. That's the undoing of the blood of Christ. So chapter 1, Jonah flees, right? He flees. He ends up being swallowed by a big old fish. And there he is in that moment for 3 days in the belly of a fish. How does that even happen? And can't you imagine the redo moment he probably had in his head? Man, I wish I could redo this. You know, all of a sudden, like, well, I'm in the middle of the ocean in the bottom of a fish. And let's look at what he says. We're going to look at verse, chapter 2, 7 and 8. So good. It says, when my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer went up to you into your holy temple. When my soul fainted within me, when he had nothing else to give, when he was at the end of his rope, when he had been to the place of such anguish, he ran. And it says, and my prayer went up to you. Verse 8 says, those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy. Verse 9, but I will sacrifice to you with the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay what I have vowed. Salvation is of the Lord. So the Lord spoke to the fish and then vomited Jonah onto the dry land. Could you imagine all the junk that came out of his belly? I started thinking about that. I'm like, I bet that was so gross. I bet his hair was nasty. I bet he had bad breath. I bet he stunk to high heaven. And I bet he wished to the Lord he wouldn't have not went that direction. But he got to the place where he recognized how low, how dark he was. He recognized it, and it said he remembered the Lord. And when I read that one verse when it says, those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy. When you begin to worship anything other than God, you're setting yourself up for complete and utter failure. Are you worshiping your money? Are you worshiping in your me time? Are you worshiping your relationship? Because if you're not careful, you're going to end up stuck in the belly of a fish. And that fish may look like depression. That fish may look like just complete apathy. That fish may look like laziness. But I know the moment you cry out to God, he remembers you. And I think over and over again, we somehow make this life about us. You know, one of the things that we did while we were at this women's conference, they had like a business section where they had people come in on the panel. And what they did was they told them how to start businesses. So like the pastor's wife that we sponsor at Cadnet, her name is Suzette. She fries up plantains and different things, and she sells them on Cadnet is at the top of the mountain. She goes down every day before daylight, and she sells different things like plantains, or they said fried Oreos. I said, wait, they have fried Oreos in Haiti? But it's something like that, they said. So they do different things like that. And they were doing different things. But what they asked me to do one day, and Kelsey and two other ladies, is to wash the feet of the women. And so the first part of me, Richard hates feet. Like he hates feet. And so something about that started thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if their toenails are dirty? Or what if their feet stink? And then all of a sudden, I found myself at these women's feet laughing, and no longer was I looking at their feet, I was looking them in the eyes and into their face. And I was learning their names. And I was learning from what village they came from. And I was learning the heartaches that they were carrying. And I was learning the things that things just didn't matter anymore. But what got me was, I'm not going to cry, is that when I started rubbing their hands were so hard and worn out. because they never stop serving their families. They never stop serving God. They are desperate and hungry for light. What's so crazy is, y'all, that we show up at 10:35 when the countdown comes on. These women showed up at 7:45 for a conference that started at 9:30, banging on the doors to get in there. Why? Because they know that light was represented in that place. They knew that something was going to come from that conference. They knew that being there, walking miles to get there. Riding on the back of a tap-tap truck with 70 people crammed in a little tiny truck like this to get there because they were hungry to hear a word from God. And yet we're so lazy in America. We're so lazy. We say we'll show up whenever we want to show up. We'll do whatever we want to do when we want to do it. And that's not how the kingdom of God is meant to run. It's not. It's not. It's not. But you know what? Sometimes showing up is part of someone else's freedom, hope, and miracle. And you know what? You showed up by giving. You showed up and those women got diapers. There's a picture, I believe, those ladies holding their little blue bags. This picture right here, actually Macy Brooks, she bought 65 bags for these women to have. Out of her, she gave it, and that's what it says, Better Together, P-Bone Ensemble, the only Haitian I know. P-Bone Ensemble, I've said it 50 times. This is Beatrice. She's crazy, so fun, spoke zero English. We had a ball. That's her. The next picture, this is our women from Cadnet. So when you sponsor a child, this is probably one of their mamas. And so they're incredible. You see all their sweet faces. Kelsey never not had a baby on her hip or in her hands. It was hilarious at all times. But this is such a picture. See, what happened is you showed up and these women got diapers. Macy showed up and those women got bags full of beans and rice. These got bags of beans and rice as well. Just like with Blitz, when you show up, guess what? The people of our city get to eat. They don't have to worry about it, but we have to get to a place where we're showing up. These women showed up. They were hungry for light. One night we were sitting out on the balcony, and that day, somebody had sponsored for me to be able to take all the free-to-bees, and they were translated in Haitian Creole. And so these women had never had devotions. Most of them don't have Bibles. There's not resources in Haitian Creole. So it was a big deal to them. They brought it every day to the conference. All we did was give them out the first day. They brought them back every single day. It was mind-blowing. And that night, I was laying in the bed. These two dogs bark all night long. And I'm on the end, and there's only two other women in my bunk of 15. So you already know I have so much fear. I've already convinced myself somebody's outside the gate. They're pushing that barbed wire down. They're coming over the fence, and they're about to kill me. Like, I knew it. And all you hear is those two dogs just barking. Roof, roof. I mean, they're running back and forth, running back and forth, running back and forth. And I'm laying there, and it was pitch black dark, and I would take my phone, and I would go in the corner of the room. Oh, that's the fan. Okay. And then I would take my phone, and I would do like this at the door, and I'm like, oh, it's just Kelsey. Okay, we're good. And I was so overcome with fear. And all of a sudden, I started seeing in my mind every free-to-be that was represented at that conference those women had being a light all over Haiti. Because what we told them to do was take that book to go find 10 women in their villages and equip those women and have those women to equip 10 more women. So their entire village turned from dark to light. And it was such a picture of that for me. That's what discipleship is. It's what it looks like to be in this place of pursuing light. Oppression is real. Addiction is real. Heaviness is real. I felt it every ounce of the day. There's so many. I pray more in Haiti than I think I do in any other time. It's non-stop because you can feel the darkness. I'm making you want to go, right? I told Blake, I'm not going to tell everybody it's dangerous. But Gaston is dangerous. What are we talking about? All right. Darkness oppresses in order to knock you down so that you stay down. See, the oppression from the enemy is if I can just get them not serving, then I've got them. If I can just get them to that place of making them think you can't afford to tithe, I've got them. If I can just get them to a place of saying, you know what, I don't really need a life group in my life. I've got this. Boom, he's got you. And the whole mindset is to get you feeling under the oppression so that you feel knocked down so that you stay down. That's what the enemy is calling. Is what he's not calling. He is pushing you down. He wants you to stay stuck in that place. There's a picture of these massive mountains. You see this. So when you're riding, everybody who's been to Haiti knows. When you're riding down the road and you look over, usually you see men. And they're all over this entire sand thing. That's how they get up. I don't know what they actually do. They take something and they come down off of that mountain. Y'all, they're not strapped to anything. They go up these mountains so they can make the cement like they have, like build the houses or different things. And every single day when I go by there, I wonder how many of them fell today. Wonder how many of them fell off that mountain. And because if you fall, you're dead. And then the next day we went by and I saw this. Those are all goats. I couldn't believe my eyes. But you know what made me think about? Those goats probably have no fear whatsoever. It's their way of life. But you know what I know about those men is they show up. They show up because their family needs to eat. They show up because they know that they show up because they know that they are part of the undoing. They know it. And you know what I know is that Jonah, he hated Assyrians so bad. He didn't think they deserved mercy. And when I hear this statement, well, they made their beds, they can lie in it, it fuels me. Because what about the woman who didn't make her bed? In fact, she doesn't have a bed. She's on a dirt floor. And there's years of just surviving. Don't you want to be a part of that change? Because I know that I do. Several years ago when we were in Haiti, we all were sitting around outside and we were just resting. And we heard this moaning. Like, y'all, when I tell you that the moaning was, I've never heard anything like it. I'll never forget it. It was like a woman had, I don't know what happened. It was insane. I can't even describe to you. In any funeral I've ever been in at, anything I've ever experienced, this moaning was one I can never remember. Never get out of my head. And I asked Jersey, the one that lives there, I said, do you remember that time that girl was moaning? She said, yeah, actually she was one of my real good friends and she was running because she had just gotten, like brutally, something happened to her with the guy that she was with. And I thought, oh, it crushed me. But you know what? She probably had nowhere to run to. Just like when I was coming down the mountain from the mommy and me, there was a little boy who wanted to hop in the back of the truck with us. He was with his mom, and they get in the back of the truck, and we go down, and they wait. And I watch them walk off, and there they walk off to a little bitty bush, and under that bush is where they live. And I think, this is why I go. This is a part of the undoing of the evil that the enemy is meant for an oppression. He wants it to stay that place. But you know what I love about God? He's the God of second chances. If you look in chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, it says, now the word of the Lord came to Jonah. What? What does it say? What time? The second time. Saying, arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and preach to it the message that I tell you. So Jonah arose and went to Nineveh, according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, a 3-day journey in extent. And Jonah began to enter the city on the first day's walk. Then he cried out and said, yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. It wasn't like a sweet little message. You're going down, basically, right? He screamed it. He yelled it. And what I know about that is that God didn't change the hearts of the people. I mean, Jonah didn't, but God did, right? His words, Jonah's words didn't do anything. It was God had already had called Jonah to go. And after the second chance, he changed it. In Jonah chapter 4, he got real mad because they repented. They repented. They tore their clothes off. They said, we're repenting. And Jonah was so mad. I'm not going to read chapter 4. I want you to go back and I want you to read that. But he was so mad about it. He was so mad. And I thought to myself, we have deep-rooted unforgiveness sitting in our souls. When I was in Haiti and I was talking to some of the women, I asked them, I said, you know, what are you most afraid of? And they immediately said, not being able to feed my family. Or my husband's been gone for 2 years He's in the United States getting stuff for us, and we can't get to him, and I haven't communicated to him in 2 years. So I don't know if they're really dead or alive. And here she is trying to just keep her baby's belly full. A Haitian usually eats maybe once or twice a week. They live on less than $1 a day. It's unreal, the poverty that you see in Haiti. It blows my mind. But you know what? Revolution is part of the undoing. There's a video that I want to show you really quick. This is Cadenet now, y'all. The ones, people will know, then I'll explain it. See the building, the roof? There's a school. There's like benches. Unreal, right? When we first went to Haiti, there's a picture of Richard up there. Kyle, if you can throw that picture of Richard and the pastor. That was Cadenet before. That's banana leaves and tree limbs on top. The first time Richard and I ever went there was not even a roof on it. Then it was like tree tarp. And now this is what Cadenet looks like. Wow. Y'all need to clap for that because it's craziness. It's mind-blowing to me what happens when people lean into the place of surrender. It blows my mind to see what all God can do when someone just says yes. When there's not a constant resisting, a constant saying, no, I'm going to do it my way. You know, every single day there was this woman who came outside of the place where we were staying, and the first day we were there just happened that the doctor who is connected with Disciples Village just happened to be at where we were. And this woman was banging on the door. You could hear a screaming cry. And they opened the door, and this little bitty girl, about 2 years old, or maybe even less than that, had fallen into some hot coals where her mom was cooking and burned her arm up. And I didn't go out there because I couldn't stand the crying. It was like making me so achy. But they wrapped her little sweet little arm, and every day she came back. Every day she came back for a new dressing on her arm. And I thought, isn't that the God that we serve? Is it even in the depth of the belly of a fish, when we show up and remember the things of God, repent and turn back to the place where he's called us to be and go, he wraps us up in his love and he sends us back home. He sends us back to the place. You know, another definition of undo is cancel the efforts and the results of a previous action. A lot of us, including me, have made a lot of dumb choices in our lives. We allow things to continue and fester, and we continue to walk in sin that we know that God has called us out of. But when I think about Jonah, Jesus mentioned 4 writing prophets, and Jonah was one of them. It was like this beautiful prophetic chain of events because Jonah went into the well because of his own sin, right? And he spit out on the 3rd day. But Jesus went down because of my sin. And on the 3rd day, he rose again. So Jonah was spoken out of the mouth of Jesus. Which tells me that even in our junk and even in the mess that we continue to mess up on, he sees us. He is for us. So if you're lazy, guess what? The cross is the undoing. If you're walking in sexual immorality, the cross is the undoing. If you're disobedient, if you have fear, if you have apathy, if you have hate in your heart, if you look at people and say, well, I'm not going to do that for them because they're just a drunk anyway, or I'm not going to do that for them because they're just addicted anyways, shame on us. Because those are the daughters and sons of the Most High. And he's called us to go and to declare truth into those places. The darkest places where you're afraid to go, don't try to redo and go do a different way. Lean into that. That deer pic from earlier, a sweet dear friend of mine, Debbie, who most of y'all know, she was sharing this story about how she felt like there's a stirring within our church. It's been months ago, and she talked about how this picture of these deers, and Richard has also talked about it in the message before, is when these deer jump, they all have to jump at the exact same time. Because if one little hoof falls, that is going to plummet. And immediately when I saw that picture of all those goats, I thought to myself, yes, yes. Because this passage of scripture says, he makes my feet like hinds' feet and sets me upon my high place. All I have to do is say yes, and he sets me on that place that I'm called to be. He gives me everything that I need to go. Was I ever afraid in Haiti? Maybe once or twice at night. But other than that, I felt boldness in me because he sets me on high places, not me. It's his authority. He trains my hands for battle so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. There's nothing that's going to come against you in the name of Jesus that he's not going to send in the opposite direction. You have also given me the shield of your salvation, and your right hand upholds me. Your gentleness makes me great. You enlarge my steps under me, and my feet have not slipped. There's people in this place, and you're so filled with fear. You're gripped by it. And God is saying, stop trying to redo what I'm trying to undo in you. We have a city that is broken, y'all. We have a city that is broken. We have two countries that we're deeply invested in, Honduras and Haiti. And if you're comfortable, I'm asking you to stop being comfortable for the sake of this kingdom. If you're afraid to go, I'm saying go anyway. Or give anyway. Don't go, send me, I'll go. If you're holding on to your gifts, stop. There's people within this city who need you. There's people within these countries that need you. And don't wait for the change to come. Be that change. Don't wait for Blake to go to another country. Go. Or send her or me. Don't wait on a Sunday morning just to be fed for the 10,000th time. Take it and go out with it. Begin to pour back into someone. We need to repent. We need to say no longer is it about me, because it's never been about you. It's always been about God. Today, you have the opportunity, if you want to, you can go ahead and stand with me. Today after church, Blake will be in the back, and if you want to sponsor a kid, you should sponsor a kid. There's only a few kids left within our village that are not sponsored. Now, those kids don't get, they still get food. And actually, there's a picture of a sweet girl. Her name is Fanye, and this is her. And me and Richard and my girls sponsor her. And the first time that I met her was this next picture. Is there another picture of her? Maybe not. That's okay if not. It's all over my Facebook. But there's a picture of her, and I met her several years ago when I went, and again, she speaks no English, and I love her so much. And this past Sunday when I was in her church, I wasn't supposed to be at Cabinet that morning, but Kelsey and I decided to go, and the missions director took us with the translator, and we sat down on the front row. She was on the front row, and the way that is in the Haitian church is that there's the kids in the front left, teenagers in the front right, the women and the men are in the back. And so I'm sitting in the back, and they were like, no, come up to the front. The pastor's like, come on. And I was like, no, I'm good. And I sit down at the back, and I'm just overwhelmed by this building. I'm overwhelmed by just how much joy is in that place. That church started at 8 o'clock. I can't believe it. And everybody's in there on time, and it's like crazy. And there's a lot of madam pastors leading worship, and it's like, it's insane. And little Fanye, she turns around, and she goes, she couldn't believe that I was there. And she came running in the back. She sat down beside me. She kept saying she loved me over and over. And I thought, but that's $40 a month. And she looks so grown up because she's now getting meals every day. And if you're holding on to your money and not sponsoring a kid because you love Starbucks, shame on you. Because that was me once upon a time. So I am asking you to look beyond yourself, to maybe sponsor a kid, or maybe it's signing up to serve, or maybe it's giving for the first time, or maybe it's repenting. I don't know. I just know that you can't stay the same. There's no way that we as a church can stay the same as we move. It can't. If there's bitterness in your heart, be at this altar. If there's unforgiveness in your heart, get at this altar.